Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we have Fluffal's post Rise of the Duelist. They got some very cool cards since Rise of the Duelist. One of them include Edge'em Scythe, Fright for Cruel Whale, Fluffal, Dolphin, and another Fright for Repair or something on those lines. I don't have it in my deck, but you can include if you want. So right here we have a pretty decent hand. We have Foolish Barrel Goods, which is basically Rhoda for the deck. We have Fluffal Dog, which is Stratos for the deck, except it's once per turn. And we have Edge'em Scythe, which lets you fusion summon a monster on your opponent's turn. And usually what you'll be summoning is a copy of your Fright for Cruel Whale, which can destroy a card your opponent controls and one card you control, but you can prevent its destruction using Edge'em Scythe. So right here, I believe we are going first. We're up against Zephyra right here. So we're going to start off with Foolish Barrel Goods, which is just going to get us a copy of Fluffal Bear. We're going to summon Dog. Dog will get us a copy of Fluffal Wings. Now we have Bear plus Wings. So basically we can go ahead and do Draw 2 and Search 1. We're going to discard 1 and we hit a Penguin, which is very lucky. We're going to draw 2 and you search 1 off Vendor. We're going to activate Fright for Patchwork, which is basically pre-pep of rights on steroids. It searches any Edge'em and a Polymerization, which is very powerful. We're going to special on Sheep, and then we're going to go ahead into Cross Sheep. I should have linked off the Dog instead, but it doesn't matter too much because we will get a value out of it later. We're going to activate Edge'em Chain, which will get us Fright for Fusion, and we're going to recover our Penguin. We go into VFD and pass. This deck can very consistently go into VFD post the new support, and since we have Edge'em Scythe, we can also Trident one of their cards. I'm not sure what we called. We called Dark, I believe. So we're gonna activate Edge'em Scythe. I do not want his Zephyra to stay on the field. Because if I know anything about Zephyrath is probably the best card. So our Fluffal Penguin will trigger, which will get us a draw 2, and our Crush will also trigger, reviving our Penguin. We're going to draw 2, discard the Chain, and his card will be destroyed. He'll activate his Necros thing, which can summon itself when something's destroyed, and then I believe Chain gets to search for another Patchwork. So he's gonna go ahead and panel him, but he can't really attack. Neither of these have really have any relevant pendulum effects, and neither of these have decent monster effects either. Let me just read this. Tribute this, and then tribute, and then ritual summon something. Yeah, it's trash. Basically, he couldn't really do anything at this point. I forgot to set this in perm during our turn, or did I draw that? I don't know. I'm not sure, but we had another Foolish Barrel Goods, which would get us to search for anything we need. So if we want to search for Fluffal Bear, we could just do that, or we could even search Fluffal Dolphin, which is very important to deck, which can just get us even more draws. We have Patchwork, which will just get us an Edge'em and Poly. It was very difficult. We could also have gone into maybe a Link 4 Appaloosa. And as you see there, we burnt through all 3 of our copies of Cruel Whale, which is another new card, and that's the main reason why I run 3, because 2 go into BFD and 1 can just be used on its own. So let's go on to our next replay now, shall we? For our next replay, we are up against Chaos Light Swarms, I believe this is. Yes, Chaos Light Swarms. And right here we've opened a pretty decent hand. So we're going to just start off with the Toy Vendor, I believe. Yes, we do. And then we'll go ahead and discard Chain. We draw 1. We hit a Penguin off the top. We're going to activate Chain. We get search for Fright for Fusion because we already have Patchwork. We're going to get search for Chain and Scythe and Poly. I shouldn't have gone for the Scythe. I just feel the Scythe was a misplay. I should have gone for something like an Edge'em Saber. That would have made more sense. But just to play around Nibiru, we can make a Toad on some number 4. We're going to go and get a thing over here. We're going to activate Fright for Fusion, which will get us another thing. We're going to go ahead into Foolish Burial Goods, which will dump Vendor, which will get us another search for Dolphin. We're going to normal some Dolphin. We're going to get to set the Toy Vendor. We're going to get Fluffal Wings, which will let us draw 2 and search another card. We're going to go ahead and activate Toy Vendor again, which will just discard Wings as a follow-up, I guess. We're going to go ahead and activate this Toy Vendor, and then we will activate a Panic Toy Vendor. This was very unneeded. I shouldn't have just activated that. I could have just summoned Sheep for free. That it was totally unneeded. I could have potentially done more cool stuff. I probably misplayed a lot there, but he's going to start with setting Chaos Space. He's going to hit a Levianeer, he's going to activate Chaos Space, and I will just negate that, and we'll just set it to our field. Toad will trigger, which will shuffle himself back. He's going to normal summon Gareth, Lightsworn Warrior. Tornado Dragon. You don't use Tornado Dragon against Toy Vendor. He's just gonna get. We're just gonna get a free search. We're gonna activate Vendor, which will just draw us 2 cards, and we'll get another search. We're gonna activate Bahamut Shark, which can summon the Toad we shuffled back earlier. We're gonna activate Dolphin, which will reset that, and we'll dump a thing as a follow-up. We're gonna get more searches, and as you can see, we went from 0 cards in hand to 6, and this deck just has ludicrous consistency. We have not activated a Desires in this deck, and we already only have 12 cards left in our deck. We're going to go ahead and do more stuff. We're going to summon Kraken, which will later send that to the graveyard, and we're going to activate Cross Sheep, which will summon Penguin. We're going to just get rid of that. We're going to go into Link 3 Appaloosa. We're going to activate Penguin, which will get us another card. We're going to get a search. We're going to normal summon Dog. We're going to activate Vendor, which will just discard Sabers, and we miss, but that's okay. We're going to attack for well over lethal. Even if this wasn't lethal, we could have just gone into an Abyss Dweller next turn, which is basically game versus Chaos Lightsworns. So that was our second duel. Just shows how potent deck is, its consistency, and its ability to recur materials. So let's go on to our last duel now, shall we? For our last duel, we were up against Lair of Darkness, I believe. So right here, I believe we're going first again. We're going to start off with Toy Vendor, and Toy Vendor discard Chain. We draw a Dolphin, which will let us summon Penguin from our hand. We're going to activate a Patchwork, which will let us get more stuff. We'll activate Dolphin, summon out Sheep, go into Bahamut Shark, summoning out Toad. We'll go into Cross Sheep, which will let us just fusion summon a Whale. We're going to activate more stuff, which will let us do stuff. I don't know. We just end on 3 Negate Appaloosa and a Toad, which is absolutely brilliant. And can't really do much. I guess we don't have any darks, so let's see his super poly targets. He's got Nether Soul, doesn't really do much. First of Dragons, why would you ever want to run that? Can't really do anything with any of this. He runs Vortex as a super poly target, but as you see, you can't do much with these targets right here, just because our field is just such a weird field. He sets a copy of Reeling Karibo. We're gonna activate more stuff. We're gonna summon out more stuff. We're gonna activate Fright for Fusion, which will get us another summon for Tiger. And we made a 4 material Tiger so that it can just get rid of everything he controls and this Toy Vendor right here. And he's gonna be chaining his super poly, unfortunately, which will just summon Starving Venom, but we do end up dumping the Toy Vendor, which will get us Fluffal Dolphin. We're gonna go ahead and reset that Dolphin and dump Wings. We're gonna activate Vendor so that our Wings comes online. We're gonna draw 2 and search 1. We're gonna go ahead and activate Patchwork, which will get us more searches. The site is just for next turn. We're gonna activate this Foolish Barrel Goods, which will get us search for Wings. We're gonna get the Vendor. I think I kind of lost the track of my entire plan right here. I could have done better, but we're going to activate Dolphin. We'll just shuffle back a Poly. We're going to activate Cruel Whale, which will destroy another card he controls. We'll destroy his Starving Venom, and we'll negate its effect with Appaloosa. We're going to activate Cruel Whale, who will just gain more attack. And we will attack for almost lethal, very, very close to it. But he's drawn Lair of Darkness, which we just negate. He's got Total Trigger, which will just recover our Penguin. He's gonna normal summon his thing over here, and he just attacks over it. He draws into Lilith, and then goes into Diablosis, and he cannot win from there. He's already used normal summon, so that Lilith is useless. He's already used he doesn't have any level 4 lower monsters, so Ties of Brethren is also useless. Darkest Diablosis can't really do anything in this situation, because at most he could have just tributed to put something we want back on top of the deck, but once again he couldn't do anything. As soon as we normal summon, attack over it, and we just strike for game. This deck is super duper consistent, and we'll get onto that once we get to the deck profile now. So right here we have the deck. We start with 3 copies of Fluffal Dog, the Stratos. It's mainly used to just search Bear or Wing in some circumstances. but usually these are two you want to search, because Bear can get you Toy Vendor, and Wings can get you to draw two and search one, which is just absurd. We run 3 copies of Penguin. Penguin is just a very important card, as not only is it water for Bahamut Shark, but it also just acts as an extra special summon, which does come up very often, and it's kind of like Firewall, where it can only be used once while it's on the field. So if you get another copy on it on the field, you can use it again. So it's not technically a hard once per turn. And on top of that, it has an incredible effect where if it's scented graveyard fusion material, you can draw 2 and discard 1, which is absolutely incredible, especially with Edgem size, where you can just pop a card on your opponent's turn on top of just drawing 2 and discarding 1. We run 3 copies of Dolphin. This is absolutely mandatory. Not only is it water for Bahamut Shark, it also just recovers Toy Vendors, which is something this deck did lack earlier. Sometimes the deck could just burn out through all of its copies of Toy Vendor and have no way to recover them. But Fluffal Dolphin just helps that. On top of that, when it does that, it sends a Fluffal monster and Edgem Sabers to the from your deck to the graveyard. So you can send a copy of Fluffal Wings to the graveyard, which means you can draw 2 and search 1, which is just absolutely insane. 3 copies of Fluffal Bear just for your Toy Vendor. It's basically just terraforming for the Toy Vendor. 3 copies of Fluffal Wings. This is kind of broken. Just lets you draw 2 and search 1 if you send Toy Vendor. Basically you banish, if you control Toy Vendor, you banish it and another Fluffal in order to draw 1, and then if you have Toy Vendor, you can send that to the grave to draw another card, and then Toy Vendor will trigger searching another card, which is super duper great. 3 copies of Edgem Chain. What this does is its on-field effect is not at all relevant, although it does have a very good on-field effect. But pretty much we're just using it for its graveyard effect, where it's sent to the graveyard. You can search a Fright for a card, which is absolutely great. 3 copies of Sight. 3 copies of Sight for just a draw. It basically just turns into a hand trap Trident, which is super great. And pretty much we have Fright for Whale over here, which is mainly what you're going to go into. And those are all our 3 obs, so let's go into our 1 obs. 1 copy of Fluffal Owl. Doesn't come up too often because of this sheer amount of ways we have to search your polymerization and fusion spells, but this can also act as a walking polymerization on top of searching polymerization, which is super great. 1 copy of Sheep. The main reason why I run this is just as extra material to go into a card like Appaloosa or Cross Sheep, so that's nice. 1 copy of Fluffal Cat. Fluffal Cat does come up sometimes, where if you only have 1 copy of polymerization with a handful of monsters, it does come up, just recovering that polymerization. 1 copy of Edgem Sabers. We just run 1 of it mainly for our other fusions where that do require specifically Edgem Sabers, such as Fright for Tiger and Fright for Wolf. 3 copies of polymerization. You do want to see this as often as possible. 3 copies of Fright for Patchwork. This is basically pre-prep of Rights, where it lets you search 2 cards. It searches any Edgem card, so you can search Edgem Sight, which can turn into a Trident during your opponent's turn. You can search Edgem Chain, so if you have Toy Vendor, it can search another Fright for card, like Fright for Fusion right here. And it searches polymerization, which is one of the more important things. Just a very important card in the Fright for strategy. 3 copies of Foolish Burial. You're usually just going to use it to dump Toy Vendor, and then this Toy Vendor will get you to search for any Fluffal, which is very nice. 1 copy of Fright for Fusion. Just this 1 copy is fine. I haven't really found a real reason to run more than 1. It's a hard once per turn, which is an issue with running too many of it, and just 1 is perfectly fine. 3 copies of Toy Vendor. I forgot about this. It lets you discard 1, draw 1, and if it's a Fluffal, you can special summon any monster from your hand, and if it's not, then you just dump it. And if it's sent to the graveyard, you can search a Fluffal, which is very important. Toy Vendor is just very, very important in this deck, as it is your main. It's kind of like a pseudo win condition, and this deck can play through tons of hand traps. not necessarily just 1 or 2. Of course, it can't play through a 6 negate board, but it can play through 1 or 2 hand drops, which is pretty nice. 2 copies of Impermanence. I run 2 copies of Impermanence over 3 copies of Call by Graves, say. Mainly because this deck can just play around hand traps, doesn't need the Call by Graves. And Impermanence is just Impermanence, just plays around so many decks. I feel that Impermanence has become more important than Ash Blossom, just because of the current format. But Impermanence is always just wonderful to have. 3 copies of Cruel Whale. 3 copies of Cruel Whale is absolutely necessary because for Calamities it's a level 9, so it just goes into Calamities. And on top of that, it is your main fusion target of Edgem's Scythe, which basically lets you pop a card for free. On top of that, it has a lot of OTK potential, letting you it basically makes it gain 1300 attack. You can target any Frightful card, send a Frightful card from your deck or extra deck to graveyard, then that card gains attack equal to its own original attack cut in half. So if you targeted a Sabertooth, for example, it would gain 1200, and so on. If you target itself, it gains 1300, which is super nice. And basically, not only does it help in OTKs, it is also just Trident, and just one of the best fusion monsters this deck has seen in a long time. 2 copies of Sabertooth. This also just comes in handy for OTKs, on top of just special summoning more cards. 1 copy of Kraken. Kraken is just an extra pop. You can, if you want, you can just fusion summon Kraken, send a card, fusion summon Sabertooth, bring back Kraken, and then you can send another card, which is very, very powerful. 1 copy of Frightful Wolf. This doesn't come up too often, but basically it just gets to attack. It can attack any number of times in the battle phase, up to the number of fusion materials it used, which is very nice. 2 copies of Frightful Tiger. This also just comes in clutch for your OTKs. Usually you're going to make it off Frightful Fusion, which is the best way to make it, because you can just get tons of materials off it, as it can send cards on from the field to graveyard up to the number of materials it used. On top of that, each Fluffal and Frightful gains 300. Each Frightful gains 300 for each Fluffal and Frightful you control, which just adds up to the OTK potential of this deck. So it used to be a glass cannon deck, just like Heroes, where it relied on going blind second and hoping to OTK. But this deck can now go first, setting up tons of negations, and top of just OTKing like crazy going second. So next we run 1 copy of VFD, one of the most, it's basically Shockmaster for monsters. Basically just Shockmaster. 1 copy of Bahamut Shark to get your Toad. 1 copy of Abyss Dweller. This deck can make it pretty easily because you do run a pretty hefty rank 4 engine. 1 copy of Toad for your Bahamut Shark. 1 copy of Appaloosa. You can usually make a 3 or 4 negate Appaloosa pretty easily in this deck. And finally 1 copy of Cross Sheep. Just this deck can take such good advantage of Cross Sheep, just special summoning more monsters from your graveyard. It's pretty great. And that's the deck. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell, as it really does help the channel a lot. And we shall meet each other in our next video, shall we? Bye bye.